On this date, Michael, not only do we have the NBA and NHL postseason upon us, but this also officially marks the point that we have passed halfway in this NFL offseason. So you have been so kind as to lay out who your best and worst off seasons to this point have been. And in no particular order, your best teams are the Jets, the 49ers, the Panthers, the Seahawks, and Eagles. Who do you want to highlight first?
Well, I first want to talk about the notion of an offseason, right? Everybody gets all caught up with who did you sign? Who did you add? How much money did you spend? And that doesn't necessarily equate to having a great offseason. Teams that have great off seasons are the ones that get their 22 draft to play at a really high level in 23. So, this is a list of teams that, to me were good that added to the good. Like Carolina, the reason I think they had a good off season is because they added a quarterback that I think can go really high to a team that I think has a chance to improve. A lot of young players on Carolina's team, so they can get better. So I thought that. The Jets obviously are a good team, and they added a blue-chip quarterback. Who couldn't thought they had a good offseason? That one move alone makes it a good offseason. And then they added Lazard and other players, so that makes it a good offseason. The 49ers just adding Hargrave, to me, was good. And Philadelphia adding Swift to go along with the other pieces that they've added. The kid from Atlanta, the receiver, I can't say his last name, who's really a kind of a good third receiver for them, made a lot of plays in Atlanta. So to me, I think those are the teams that I looked at. And then Seattle finally get a 3 technique in Dramonte Jones. And then they've added some other pieces to their team that I think will get better. But what I love about Seattle is they have 2 rookie tackles that started 17 games last year, and those guys are going to get better. They went through the whole season and played every game. And Charles Cross, and they're going to get better. They're going to become an even better team. So, to me, I think we spent so much time focusing on, well, they didn't spend any money or they didn't get any names. The Raiders didn't sign any big-name players. Well, I think they've added some core players to the team. Did they have a great offseason? No, because I feel like the Raiders, had they added an offensive lineman or an offensive tackle, would have made their offseason much better.
Also, I'm usually pretty good with names, but I think it's Olamide Zaccheaus, and even that's like a really, really hard name to say. I don't think I even said that right.
Yeah, he is Zacharias, I think it is. Isn't it Zacharias? Olamide Zaccheaus, right?
Yeah, something along those lines, yes. Oh, I feel bad. I'll get it.
He's a good receiver, and he's the third. Everybody wants him to bring in Hopkins, right? Well, Hopkins would be a good addition, but now we've got to pay Hopkins money, which means that money we're paying Hopkins can't go to an offensive lineman that we want to extend or a defensive lineman. I think you have to kind of understand that salary cap money. When you give it away to a veteran player in 1 year, you better make sure that really fills a need. And I don't know if Philly needs that right this second. I think he would help them, no doubt.
Also, to go through your list, you talk about what the Carolina Panthers did, but also what they've brought in with the coaching staff that they've built, I think is a significant just addition to the way that they've tried to create that team. They're trying to build the team, but they're trying to build it from the inside out as well. Like, I love Caldwell. I love, is it Ihiro, who comes in as defensive coordinator? Like, there's a lot of things they did really well, I feel like.
And they weren't a bad team when they took over, right? And so they kept James Camp in the offensive line coach, which is critical because they could run the football. They add Miles Sanders to go with Hubbard in the backfield. Are they down a receiver? Yeah, they probably can use a receiver. But they'll find a way to get that. And I think if Bryce Young is as good as you and I suspect he could be, they could take a giant leap. And their team is young. The Tommy Tremble, the tight ends, it could be a really good player, and they're going to be able to make some of these young players improve. That's what we lack. That's what we miss when we're evaluating the offseason is what young players need to have a great second year. That's an idea for a column. I think I'll write that this week. There you go.
You're bringing your own ideas to the table. You love to see it. The Carolina Panthers, by the way, win total set at 7.5. We really like that number for them to win the NFC South, that plus 350, plus 165 shot to be a playoff team as well. But I think the way that they make the playoffs is by winning the division. So a better number there at plus 350. They can overtake the Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. The New York Jets, I think, are great that you did put them on this list, Michael, because obviously we had the article that we discussed earlier this past week about the one player away syndrome. And the Jets, certainly a team like that, when you go out and feel like you have all of the pieces, but you're just a quarterback away. You're just an Aaron Rodgers MVP season away. But they are still good. And, it's not to say that just because they did this, they're going to show up and be bad because they haven't made the playoffs in over a decade. It's just saying that maybe he's not the answer for a Super Bowl right now. Doesn't mean they didn't make improvements.
Right. I mean, to me, the comment about the Jets was the ridiculousness of Salah's comments about them being one of the 6 of the 8. The last 5 years, the Jets are 31st in the league in win total. The last 10 years, they're 30th. You're not a championship franchise when that's the case, right? You're just not. I mean, there's no inherent belief in winning. But you can't deny the offseason that they had in terms of getting a really good quarterback on a team that has a good defense and has some skill players. So it was a part of having a great offseason is fulfilling your needs with a player that fulfills your needs, right? It's one thing Houston drafts C.J. Stroud. They need a quarterback, but does he fulfill the need this year? That remains to be seen. He might fulfill it down the road. But when you're a Jet team that has a history of losing, when you sit there and talk about, well, we're great. You're in the last 5 years, only Jacksonville has less wins. Actually, you're tied with Jacksonville with 31st, with 24 wins over the time. And Detroit's just slightly ahead of them. So I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that it takes more than just 1 year to get your team turned around.
Yeah, and like you said also in that article, the culture of winning is important, and the New York Jets haven't had that for a really, really long time, and trying to take some steps in that direction here. Their win total set at 9.5. They have very, very high expectations among the 6 to 8 teams with the shortest shot to win the Super Bowl. Not to say that they're necessarily there yet. I always say potential just means you haven't done anything yet.
Right, that's right. And we get so caught up in it, and it's got to come together. You've got to blend the team perfectly together. And I think, look, they've had good, but I'll tell you a team that I think could probably have a really good offseason is teams that get their second draft class coming back. If Atlanta gets Ritter to play at a really high level, then they had a great offseason.
Well, and here's the thing. We're only halfway through, right? So still plenty more offseason to come. We'll see what other teams could try to take steps in the positive direction before ultimately things kick off in September. Okay, if those are the teams with the best off seasons.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.